The alien hive was exactly at Hollywood and Vine. The god of bugs alone knew if the sliming, sucking, skulking bastards knew the cultural significance of the intersection they'd chosen. In truth, that section of La La Land wasn't exactly what it had once been, but then nothing in Los Angeles was these days. And the fact that they chose to infest the old creaking bank building in what after all was comparatively open territory testified to the fact that this batch's IQ seemed rather low. Still, thought Captain Alexandra Lee as she stood a block away from the sun-faded concrete dialing the polarizing filter down on her faceplate against the grim and gritty Southern California sun. You could count on each and every one of the merciless mother killers being just as mean and nasty and ornery as the worst of the last hive she'd exterminated for Uncle Sam. She winked and chinned her radio. Approaching Hive 009, LA Sector B-47. She chinned her radio off and gave a significant look to the platoon under her command, 69th Platoon, AOE. Alien Occupation Eradication. The toughest soldiers in the biz. They all looked back at her, smiles covering what she knew was fear. A fear she felt in her own heart, a fear every time she got near the things. The soldiers entered the hole into the building without incident. They continued down the tunnel. It was like a tube through a cancer. Noxious drippings oozed along the sides. X-holes always had an acrid, unnerving stench. Alex already kicked in her filters. "Looks like a normal hive to me," said Michaels. "I hope this isn't by the book." They came up to a narrower passage that divided downward. Within 25 yards, the tunnel opened up into a large underground chamber, the remains of a huge vault basement, dowed with alien gunk. "Give me some light," said Alex, and the guys obliged by her by turning up their suit lanterns. The chamber blazed with incandescents, but as usual in these kinds of places, Alex Lee wasn't crazy about what she saw. Against one of the tenebrous walls hung people, alien egg sacs. Of course, they weren't just there to slag Xenos. No, that would be too easy. In this day and age, in a disintegrating place like the City of Angels, theoretically, you could just slip a limited nuke down a nest and skedaddle. Easy, quick, and a minimum of lost soldiers. However, though that nuclear holocaust up in the Pacific Northwest years back had certainly turned the tide in the Alien Earth War, giving humanity a hope of getting its planet back, such extreme measures weren't used these days, for more reasons than just the glowing glands they tended to produce in neighboring villages. No, these Xenos had their uses these days, and damn them for it. "Okay, Fallout. The chamber's probably down that tunnel there," called Lee. "Garcia?" "You got it, sir," said the grizzled vet. "These bugs haven't changed that much, and this tunnel looks like the anteroom to where we're headed. What I ain't seen, though, is enough bugs. Those hellhounds know we're here. I don't get why they didn't try to protect their progeny. Something stinks." "Could be they're out somewhere," said Michaels. "Could be lots of things." Garcia grunted. "Yeah, lots. We're here, we'll do what we came to do, and second guess later. We've got artillery guarding our asses, and we've got firepower. Now move it," Lee growled in a low, no-bullshit voice. She'd perfected it when she realized she had to order men around. Lowered voices worked well with dogs and human males. The troop descended quickly but cautiously, illumination lamps picking out the direction for them down the foul, mucousy passageway. Corporal Michelin's head snapped up from a radar set. "Incoming," he said. 25 yards ahead, sensor range, picking up 5 bogies, coming in at about 5 clicks an hour. Same direction." Lee was almost relieved. This dead silence was getting to her. "Okay, dig in, and I want a man with his weapon trained on the ceiling. Adams, you can shoot skeet. I've seen them break through and jump down from above. If they do that, I want them dead before they hit the ground." "Yes, sir." She didn't have to notify the front or rear guards. They were already down and dug in, ready for the attack. Lee threw a beam of light down on the floor. Solid-looking enough, but she was ready if any of the bastards popped up from that direction. With bugs, you just didn't know where they could pop from. They couldn't teleport, that much was known. But for all of that, sometimes it seemed like they could. And the commanding officer who underestimated them usually ended up just as dead as her men. Or worse. In this case, though, what the sensors showed was all the hive was throwing at them. 5 bugs. Plenty, though. As soon as they scrabbled into view, the frontmost boys let loose a barrage of fire. Down here in the claustrophobic darkness, Lee felt the familiar tug of total irrational fear. The bugs dodged the first bolts. Awareness of human weapons was either bred or trained into them by their maturity these days. These were Earth bugs, and they were ready to scrap with Earth people. However, the soldiers had also been trained, and better. Countless simulations gave them a sense of exactly where the things would hop in their erratic jumps. A bolt hit one. The explosion shattered it, splattering its vicious blood all over the corridor. Alex lifted her weapon and squeezed off two quick but carefully aimed shots. The first missed, exploding far away, but the second caught the left knee dead on, shattering the joint and causing the alien to go down. Garcia's next shot caught it right in its banana brain with a satisfying thud and soft kerplow, like an M80 in a gourd. Lee allowed herself a smile. They'd killed lots of aliens already without so much as a stubbed toe. Good work, chums, but don't get cocky. The toughest part is straight down there, in the general direction of hell. Hey, don't we know it, said Michaels. Chances were the Xenos were about as ready as they could be for the attack, but that didn't mean it was good for the men to rest in their laurels. Best to use the adrenaline and the other performance-augmenting drugs while they were peaking. They traipsed over the dead, crackling things in the tunnel, trundling into the darkness. The corridor widened, and their lamps illuminated a chamber. In the center, like a giant flower bulb of chitinous flesh, grew the throne, the storage place for the royal jelly, and home of the spawning queen. Lee had been in these places before. That didn't mean she was used to them. The whole was like death's uterus, with hubs and cordings and odds and ends of effluvia that, while biological, seemed antilife. Every cell in her body rebelled at the sight presented here. Training and experience and resolve fought with a deep instinct in her to turn and run. Bent, insane frieze of alien sculpture, a mockery of life. Otherwise, the chamber was empty. "What the hell?" said Michaels. "Where are they?" "I don't like it," said Lee. "Get back. The Queen doesn't leave her chamber unless there's a damn good reason." Michaels shook his head. "Look, we've got a pot full of royal jelly waiting to be tapped. Half the time the stuff gets blown up or burnt." He grabbed a tapper and started walking toward the bulb. "I say, let's get this stuff tanked right now, and we're assured a good supply, no matter if we take out these bugs or not." "Michaels, halt!" screeched Lee. "I'm not certain that junk is all that valuable. It's certainly not worth all the extra risk. You're not going anywhere, and that's an order." Michaels stopped in its tracks. "What have you got on the sensors?" Lee demanded. The private looked up from the telltale board. "Activity, but nothing close." "Come on, Captain. I could have started tapping by now." "Yeah, we get our quota, we get extra leave." She didn't like it, not one bit, but there wasn't any good reason to say no. "Okay, but I want the rest of you to back him up, and Daniels, you go along." "No problem," said the tough army man. "The rest of you, fan out and check for other exits." The men, grateful for action, spread out. "What do you think, Garcia?" she asked the sergeant as Lieutenant Michaels strode for the huge bulb. "I don't know, sir. It's not like the bugs to leave their jelly unguarded." The soldier walking off to one side looked up from his instruments. "Sir, I'm reading lower rooms. They're chambers, sir, and just as big as—" The lieutenant was just driving in the tap, connected to a couple of storage tanks. It came to her like thunder. This wasn't the main chamber, and if it wasn't what they were really after, then it was a trap. "Michaels! Daniels!" screamed Lee. "Get away from—" The bulb split open like a pregnant belly, and the baby was deadly as death itself. The emerging bug struck with a speed that was still astonishing to see, even though Lee had seen it many times before. It grabbed Lieutenant Michaels and pulled him up. It had been hiding inside. The alien was just waiting for them to tap. Michaels screamed as he was hoisted upward in the claws. Automatically, Garcia fired his rifle. Only yards away, the shell hit its mark. The mark, though, was the torso of the beast. A gory hunk of the creature was torn away, and like a burst vessel, alien blood pumped. Michaels fell under it, and Lee, helpless, watched as the alien blood spouted into the interior of his helmet, directly into his face. The scream ratcheted through the radio until the radio was killed. It seemed to grow louder and more horrible, carried only by the fetid air. The acid worked with amazing quickness upon the face. It was as though she were watching time-lapse photography. The skin sizzled off, snapping with gooey bubbles. The eyes boiled and melted. The screaming stopped. The skull began showing, and then the acid began to eat through that, frying Lieutenant Peter Michael's brain. The alien slumped, twitching. The burnt remains mixed into a liquid, unholy embrace. "Check on him," Lee said tersely. "He's gone. I said check on him," she bellowed. "If he's not, I don't want him to suffer." Garcia nodded. He stepped over to the bodies, gingerly nudged the lieutenant with the butt of his rifle. Acid mixed with smoking gore rivulated out into a horrible puddle. It burned straight through the floor, leaving a ragged, smoking hole. "Dead." "Right," said Lee. She could feel the iron grip of control exert itself, and she was in command again. "There's another chamber, and that's where we're going. No more heroics, you assholes." She took a deep breath. "No more carelessness, or I swear to God, if the bugs don't kill you, I will." The silent squad followed the Telltale to their destination. Lee would have liked these missions much better if she could just obliterate all the Xenos. However, there were two things that the Army wanted her to haul out these days. A couple of bug bodies, dead of course, random DNA samples, and whatever royal jelly from the Queen's chambers they could tap. Gold from outer space, some of the top brass were calling it these days. Bug juice. The lab coats were going absolutely nuts with it, and there was talk about all kinds of new possible uses for the stuff. With the US government pretty much busted, private industry had suddenly become the main financial backer for the armed forces. Drug companies, mostly, along with other medical and scientific researchers. The government wanted their share, of course, but when push came to shove, the interest groups holding the biggest bucks in their outstretched hands got the biggest shovels full of goop. Alien royal jelly. The stuff that made the right land of drones into queens. Food of the Xeno gods. Lee wasn't entirely sure what they needed it for. Hell, it could just be gab, and they were collecting the stuff for nothing. But it was what the upper brass told them to do, and so they did it, without questioning. The scuttlebutt that she heard was this. Each hive was based around a queen. Queens bred drones. However, only a certain kind of bug could breed queens, the so-called Queen Mother, none of which existed on Earth now. Rumor had it that it was the Queen Mother Royal Jelly that was the primo stuff. Regular jelly had its uses, but it was nothing compared to the QM gunk. There are all kinds of differences between alien hives and insect hives on Earth. Scientists didn't really understand the full activities of the beasties. Was their communication telepathic, or some weirder somatic buzz? It had already been established that the wavelengths of a queen's call could be picked up by human dreamers. One of the best ways of scoping out obscure hive locations was listening to these sensitive dreamers who acted as receivers, and in the best circumstances, as locators. But just what did the monsters want? Where had they come from? What were they doing? Where were they going? What was their cosmic destiny? Even after millions of the xenomorphs were destroyed by Ellen Ripley, several alien hives remained on Earth. Exterminating the remaining alien inhabitants was a process that had taken years before Earth could be reclaimed. Everyone on the front lines had their own theories as to the nature of their enemy. The rest of humanity waited in their exile. Nearly a generation had now passed since the first outbreak. Humans remained wherever they could. Survivors inhabited Luna City, once a tourist attraction, a theme park owned by Orson Mosh Industries. After the infestation, it became home to a large portion of Earth's remnants. When all seemed lost, its occupants made the decision to cut off all communication feeds coming from Earth, and tried to forget. Some of the more well-to-do earned passage to floating cities in the sky, such as the luxurious Delacroix Skyliner. Unlike Luna City, feeds to the Delacroix remained open throughout the ship. Printed and video infomates warned passengers to look for any sign of infestation, or for anyone who might be serving as host to an alien embryo. And of course, transmissions of the body counts from Earth, to remind them all of what they've lost. Some even managed to survive on Earth. Those few endured unspeakable horrors and learned how to hide from the aliens. When necessary, they learned how to fight. There was not much choice if they wished to continue living, if it could be called that. The consistent among all was the dreams. They may have escaped the threat of the aliens in waking life, but when the night came, so did the vivid terrors of alien horror shows played out in the human mind. Studies were held at Luna City facilities, and indeed the more sensitive dreamers could aid in locating more obscure hive locations on Earth. By the end of it all, the aliens had killed billions. Humanity hung by a thread. But it endured. Soon enough, the Earth would be mankind's home once more. While the humans united in this endeavor, an unprecedented occurrence was developing among their alien foes. Far away, on their own planet, there would be the beginnings of a great conflict. The planet's alien beings were about to experience the hells of war. The planet was not hell. There were no raging fires, no stench of brimstone, no rivers of blood wailing or tortured souls. It just looked and smelled and tasted like hell, according to the Marines who had come there and raped it. They called it the birthplace of demons, though its denizens were not demons. They were far worse. The Marines simply called it Hive World, although the navigators of hyperspace had an obscure number tag for it. They had come here, to this blighted planet, and they had plundered it, stealing its queen mother. With the matriarch deposed, her subjects were in disarray, unable to function. They were aimless, silent. Without the psychic bonds of the ruler to guide the lives of her minions, genetic drift occurred. Different queens, pretenders to the throne, developed and flourished. All were killed by the most dominant of the bunch, a traditional creature who could have been an identical twin to the Queen Mother who had perished in a nuclear blast in the Pacific Northwest on Earth. Call them Black. Call her the Black Queen Mother. And the new group, the Changelings, call them Red. Strangers, freaks that had to be destroyed. The leader of this new brood, living against all calculable probability, was the Red Queen Mother. Bearer of recessive genes, any sign of whose chromosomal changes had brought instant death in the hive before. The Red Queen Mother and her minions fled. In the confusion of reorganization, they escaped and they established a new hive, far enough away to thrive. The Red Queen Mother spawned using the herds of animals that roved this bleak planet. A new rival kingdom was created, and for years the kingdoms lived in peace. But each knew instinctively that the other hive was the enemy, that this peace would not last long, and when war came, the principal weapons would be in the numbers of warriors. And so the creatures bred, and bred, and bred. While others of their ilk were hunted under different suns, the mistress of one kingdom calls out to her nation. The mistress of another sends out her own command. The result is a cry for genocide. In this series, I'm recounting events taking place in the aftermath of the Earth War, as depicted in the Aliens comics and novels. For more of the events of the Earth War, please see the playlist on the end screen and in the description below, and stay tuned for the latest videos. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from Alien Theory. My very, very special thanks goes out to Alyssane, Queen Tier of the Patreon Hive. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.